After all of the specifically stressful last months, it's very surprising to me how excited I am right now because it's suddenly like all clicked together, and yeah, the killer app is here. It's coming. It's going to be fun.
The news that just came up around Story Protocol, I don't know if you want to enter any opinions on that or if you have anything to say.
Yeah, this is a funny one. Actually, Yam and Maxime like dig this up, and when I looked at the code, it's like so obviously that they just like learned from us. Let's call it like that. Just literally took the same thing. I think we even met them at a conference once, and then they were all a bit strange. Now we know why. Um, but honestly, I see it the following. I mean, they would have been smarter actually using the full thing and using the standards, because then they could also potentially at some point use the browser extension, other things. But it looks to me also like it's very focused on IP. I don't think this is even like a remotely kind of like covering our area. I mean, to some degree maybe, but it's not. There's no. Yeah, it's kind of a great confirmation of that we are having the right tech and we're on the right path. I personally find it impressive how you can raise 140 million if that's true, because that means your evaluation is what, $1 billion, and you haven't launched. That cannot really go well. Not gonna lie, but this doesn't seem to be functional. Uh, I mean, that's too much. That's too much expectations and too much shoes to fill. I'm traveling currently in Zurich. That's exactly why I'm here in this pretty real background, even though it looks like it's a Google background. But I'm actually at Niklas' castle from Bitcoin Swiss, and I happen to sit in his office right now um, to do this little recording here. Um, yeah, we just had a great meeting with Bitcoin Swiss. Everybody's excited. I'm actually getting very nicely welcome in Switzerland all the time. I have to say, I'm feeling very honored. The crypto banks, the crypto projects are all like pretty much nice and very excited to talk to us. I'm so excited now. I mean, probably people heard about the grid idea that like literally made everybody now excited. I just saw this guy making this little app example on Twitter. Yeah, very much in this direction. Um, I mean, I'm super pumped about it. We are like, building it now together to make universal profiles quite useful through a grid that you can literally extend with anything. Um, I mean, this is what I see is missing, like bringing Web2 and Web3 together into the same place while not trying to hard marry them, because that's really right now not really possible, but really just like making them behave like it can be the same thing, it's in the same place. Then you get the Web2 people in and they see functionality because they can now unify their social, or creator life in some one place. But then they can also start to discover all this Web3 stuff, and the Web3 people can also now bring their other half of themselves in, which they so far had to always like treat like a split personality. Like they're on Twitter, but they're actually really just interested in their ENS and their cyber, like their board ape and crypto punk, right? Um,
Right.
and now we can bring it all together. It's exactly how it should be. So I think that
Yeah.
that's very exciting, and there's a lot of other things coming. There's another little thing coming. I'm not exactly sure when will be airing.
Uh, a week and a half,
Okay,
maybe.
then it would have already come potentially by then. Um, and that's a follower system, an on-chain follower
Oh,
system. So pretty much you will be able to follow anyone, on chain. Proof of profiles can follow each other on chain, and that is a cross app follower system. So any other app can use the same. So you bring your followers with you, and you can take them with you. It's a very basic smart contract registry. It's currently called LSP26 follower system. Um, and when you watch this, it might already be live. Um, and
I like
then
that
you can like follow
26.
each other.
I think it fits great for the grid, right? Like I could follow another grid user, but then if I'm a DApp builder and I have an application that sits inside the grid as a widget, I could actually bring that follower base right into that
Yeah,
widget, so to speak, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can read it from the registry and understand who is following whom and what this does. You could build a little social graph in such a grid box. I mean, keep in mind right now, like right now, we're basically putting this out and people can follow each other, and it's more like a signal. I mean,
Hmm,
we haven't built a full-on feed generator system because you can do that centralized, but it's a
right.
lot more complicated, to do this decentralized. And also, yeah, people need to first like start to do things and so on. But it's a good basis, and anybody can pretty much use this. A universal page could use this, and now you have your followers, that you have in universal profile.cloud, also in universal page, or on universal swaps. And that already kind of makes a little bit of a aha moment if you come from Web 2 and you get to experience how yourself is already in many places at the same time.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think enough people really appreciate, and they won't until they get an opportunity to actually use it and participate in an ecosystem that has that really at its fundament. So I'm excited for it personally. I can't wait. And you I heard you talk on the Twitter space about the grid, and immediately my brain it just doesn't turn off. So I started picturing what this thing could look like and all the possibilities. And I've been pretty stoked would be the word
Me
since
too.
you
I
talked.
mean, what's kind of funny for me, and this is it actually, I mean, honestly, everything that we're building is pointing towards this, right? Universal profile, universal everything, put everything in one place universally. So we already, I mean, the tech I built is built for exactly this idea. But what I really try to do before is always hard marry your profile with whatever we show below. Like it is your tokens below that you truly own. If you would integrate Farcaster, it needs to be the profile that's actually signing into Farcaster. And that is kind of for me, that was a bit the click of understanding that we do not need to marry this right now directly. We can marry it symbolically. So the things that you show, all the Web2 stuff that you see in your grid underneath your profile that you want to show, you're obviously not locking in with your universal profile yet in these places because they're all Web 2, old school. But we are linking them mentally together by showing them in the same context. And that actually inspires now people to not only show their self, and now it's an interesting website to share, but it inspires developers to build things for these profiles. And for them, it's now a lot easier because they can build little widgets rather than building a full on website. And people that come from Web 2 and just use this as a, let's say, MySpace on steroids, or modern MySpace,
Yeah,
um,
right.
they then are able to discover what Web3 means, and discover this other profile, and they see maybe a voting system, or there maybe you can claim a token somewhere else, or they can do things like this. And then they realize, oh, that's what I can do in Web3, right? Oh, there's this DJ asked this token, I claimed, oh, it appears on my profile. And then they realize, oh, I can also just trade this on this other website. And there's this NFTs I saw and I just bought some. So that will start to make the difference in people's mind where they realize, oh wow, that Web3 stuff is actually interesting.
It incentivizes me to go and crawl across profiles, right? Like at any time I could go on universalprofile.cloud right now and I can check out someone's profile, and I have. I'm sure a lot of people have. But throw it in a grid context where I can, I go back like MySpace on steroids or Tumblr, as it were. Like I can customize this profile, this grid to make it really reflect what I like to do, the things that exist outside of just my token holdings. And then it becomes a really interesting expression of every user. And I think that will become incredibly interesting just to like scroll across people's grids and like look at them. I mean, I don't
I
know.
mean,
I'm older. I grew up with the Tumblr and MySpace, and like this feels like a return, but way better because it's like containerized for now this network that sits underneath it, and you can swap things out very easily. There's so much extensibility there.
and what's interesting is you couldn't have done that just 10 years ago because the web was not responsive. But because now we all have screens of that size,
Yeah,
now you, for the first time, literally have every website, pretty much every website in the world already works in a smaller space because of the phones. So now a grid even makes sense. Like you couldn't have done that. You would have literally, loaded or tried to load a website in 2000, into a smaller grid. It would have been unviewable, right? And
right,
nowadays we have this. I mean, it's a revival in a way, but it's a revival on a Web3 account. And on top
right.
of this, it's now possible. Um, obviously there is some challenges, with loading and amount of data, and I mean, the grid right now, we're experimenting with the grid, and it's I mean, it's not fully buggy free to the thing. So like, bear with us how this then grows over time, step by step. But ideally, it is as permissionless as it can be. That means you can load anything in any of these boxes. It's an iframe, if you will, load whatever website you want. And and we have one big problem in the internet, and that is the fragmentation of our identities. And the other problem, and that specifically is actually true for creators, DJs, for example. What do they share? Do they share like the Instagram, or share the SoundCloud, or their event calendar, or Eventbrite, or God knows what they have,
Right.
or do they share, yeah, what do they share? Or what about a practitioner that does yoga classes, but also has Instagram, and maybe does, I don't know, YouTube videos once in a while? Which of the two things he shares? And you're always forced, as the person who's interested in someone, to do all the research. And even if that means go to their Instagram, click on the link tree, and then click through 6 websites just to figure out what just happened in this person's life in the last few days. So which meant that most people just use one platform all the time, which
Mhm.
is Instagram, then with stories, la la la. And that's true for some people, but other people then use Twitter, and other people maybe use YouTube. And it's so really difficult to follow people, or companies, or communities. um,
Mm.
and we can now marry this into one place, and it nicely marries with all that Web3 stuff, like your tokens and whatever else you have. And I'm also very excited for the ideas of DAOs in Universal Everything. So if you have a DAO, in a widget, you could have the member list, nicely searchable. You could have like one box with the latest, proposal being voted on right now, live, literally on there.
Yeah.
You can show a common ground chat, see live the discussions that are happening as you see the vote going up in the box, and even a whole box where you can create your own proposal, if you will. And it's only possible because the account that you have in Universal Everything on universalprofile.cloud is like a profile already. So you get to interact with all this Web3 stuff out of the box. Um, and there's an interesting thing, actually. I had a meeting with the Affinity, or ICP, and we brainstormed things that we can use Internet Computer for with profiles, and it's a perfect match. You can do like really cool things where your Internet Computer container works as, for example, a private storage that you can, for example, use for your subscription, where you say, okay, I can now show certain content only to people that are connected to me and subscribe to me. And uh, yeah, Internet Computer could be that decentralized container that reveals that data on the fly if you're a member. It's lots of more ideas. Internet Computer is like it's an amazing addition to Universal Profiles.
I think that's what got me excited when I first heard you talking about the grid. I know I sent you a few messages. It was like I just couldn't stop thinking about it because I think you might have used the phrase Trojan horse, but it feels like the perfect Trojan horse to actually onboard lots of people into Web3 without forcing them to come to Web3, right? You're actually taking that kind of 2.5 approach. I don't know like if that makes sense to
I
anyone,
agree.
but like that we're going to go meet you where you're at and we're going to bring you in. You won't even realize that you have all this additional capability now. And that gives developers, that gives people an opportunity to like slowly ramp in those other use cases like you're talking about, right? And bring in that interactivity that is going to be like that is really going to blow minds, right? So you can capture the user, they're there already, and then throw in a cool widget that suddenly is like this super interesting thing. Like, holy
I
shit, I
mean,
didn't realize
there could be
you
the
had that.
killer widget. I mean, I think that's already the killer app in itself. But you could have the killer widget that now like starts a full-on, crazy rant or crazy frenzy on one
Right.
dude's little widget that just happened that everybody clones into their profile, and now it somehow gets really busily used under every profile. And all you need
Right.
as a developer is be now that guy who comes up with this protocol and literally builds a tiny micro website with 3 buttons, if you will, and just ask people to edit there. And God knows, what kind of that killer widget it will be.
That was a question I kind of had in my mind was, because they're iframes, you can obviously take any app, so to speak, that's mobile responsive and you could put it into a frame. But do you see people more taking their existing infrastructure and just using the mobile responsive version in an iframe, or maybe, like you said, building a micro dApp with just like
Both.
3 buttons,
Yeah,
both.
both. I mean, obviously, there's the whole digital web that you can integrate and whatever people have already. But I mean, it will really encourage developers to build, because imagine you are like if you're a developer on Ethereum or any kind of EVM chain, what is your interest? If you're a real nerd, you're interested in building your little cool protocol. You might know how to do a bit of interface stuff, but you don't care about landing pages. You would not want to deal with onboarding of users, and you don't want to do the marketing or anything. All you want to do is build your little front end that makes your 5 buttons talk to your smart contract that you're so excited about. Now,
Mm.
Universal Everything, Universal Profiles will be that place where you can put that. And if the people get excited about this and they start to cloning this to their profiles, they will become all of your windows into your protocol. It probably will bring a lot of developers to LUKSO, because it's just so easy now to do something under a profile rather than coming up with your own whole website and trying to get lurk people to come to that website, which is a hard thing to do.
Mm.
No, I mean, it's, by the way, internet computer is also really nice use case here, because in internet computer you can actually have a canister that runs the front end, runs the back end, and a canister can actually hold a key, a private key that could interact automatically with smart contracts. That would actually be the perfect little widget generator tool that could then talk to smart contracts on LUKSO and the profiles. God knows what cooler things you can just come up with this as a tech stack, Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to watch what people come up with. I mean, don't expect it from today to tomorrow. If we launch it, it will take some time.
No.
People need to first discover it, and then they'll all start to creating their profile, and then it gets shared, and more people get in, and blah 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 blah. But eventually, it has so many feedback loops. I think this can grow pretty quickly.
Could you clarify something for me? Because I'm like trying to think of this. So I have the grid. I can obviously attach my own YouTube videos if I wanted to. I have my Twitter, my Instagram. It's this curated space for all of the content that I've ever created. Great. I add a Web3 widget. Let's say I add universal swaps there. I sign in with the mobile browser extension. Am I now I'm connected through universal swaps right there? If someone else comes across and is like looking at my grid, do they see the swaps widget that I have brought in?
So right now, what we would do is that whatever you put under your grid is what other people see. So if you have like, imagine you have a token, you could potentially build in the universal swaps widget there as well, trying to tell people, hey, that's my token, buy it right underneath my profile. And
Yeah, yeah.
uh, what we have to test, what I would like to do is that basically when you're connected in universal everything, you could literally very easily get connected within the module as well. So whoever comes across your profile can literally just either press a button and reconnect, or just press buy straight away, and it opens up the browser extension or the mobile app, whatever way.
Yeah, sure.
So passing down that connection is something we need to test out, but that could potentially be doable, and then becomes very seamless to interact with stuff underneath your profile, because you're
Yeah.
already literally locked into a Web3 account, right?
Right, like, that's where my head was at. It's like, "Oh my god, think about that, just as the virality of these widgets as they start to come up," like, if I've got a widget and you come across my profile and you're like, "Wow, that's a really cool widget. I like that." And then suddenly, you get this massive growth, adoption
Yeah,
growth
clone
for
to
these
my
crazy
profile. That's what I want to definitely add. Like, you see a
Yeah.
widget you like, clone to my profile, and
Oh,
then you
that'd be
have it
awesome.
under your profile. Added maybe the username or whatever, so the page is adjusted. So I'm
Yeah.
having a lot of ideas right now coming up all the time while I'm thinking about this, and and then standardizing and putting it in tickets. So we have lots of things to do, but one step at a time. First the basics, and then we go to all the other things. Um,
Yeah.
it's really exciting because it really brings all of this work that we have done over the last years together in this. It unifies it, and on top of this it includes the Web2 world and doesn't exclude it, and it actually includes even all the other chains as well, because you can also put a portfolio widget from all of your other um, I don't know, crypto accounts, if you will, or your OpenSea, whatever, something like. Why differentiating, over time, people would probably want to have that actually on their real profile on LUKSO because they start to care about that account the most because it's the header, it's the root identity for all this other stuff. So it really like is it's like a kind of like a viral thing for profiles, for universal profiles.
It realizes the potential of the vision, right? Like you've been giving this vision about this idea that, this will be the identity that you care about. The profile becomes more important than the account, like address. And some people have, I think, like myself, immediately resonated with that and bought in. But this actually makes it tangibly important to anyone, right? To have a root identity, especially in the times which we live, right? To have that root identity. When you go to my grid account, that is absolutely me. I care about it, and everything underneath I'm curating because people might see it. And that's the identity I want to put forward. Like that is something that you don't need to tell people about anymore because once it lands, people can experience. And that's the virality thing, right? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
However, interesting Tumblr was back in the day. Like nobody gave a shit until you could play with it, and then people adopted Tumblr and so on and so forth across every one of these social medias. So like this is an interesting opportunity here, and I don't know. I'm stoked, and I'm glad you are too.
I'm totally pumped, man. I mean, I'm getting excited, and everybody I'm telling about, and actually, I'm, showing this to a lot of people, and everybody gets it. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's suddenly very obvious and makes total sense. Even the people have
yeah.
never heard about crypto, they get it because it is a problem. We have that problem that we are scattered over the internet, and it also makes them clear what this whole Web3 stuff means, and how that could play in here. So it's very exciting.
And it's the differentiator. You don't have to get into the technical weeds of explaining why universal profile is better from the extension point of view. Instead, it's like just put your fingers in the wounds, so to speak. Like just check this thing out, and right away you go, yeah, I'd rather have a profile than this MetaMask. Why the hell do I want that anymore? I'd much rather have this profile. It's a logical extension of the thought. Like there's no obstacle in the way anymore, from where
Yeah,
I
and then
sit at least.
once the bridge is coming, then also you have this inflow possibility from Ethereum. Yeah,
One thing at a time.
one thing at a time. Lots of things coming. Yeah,
One thing at a time. Well, I know you're in a castle, and we should probably
I am.
get you
I
back
am in a castle for real.
we should probably get you back to, going getting through with the rest of your night and whatever else you're doing, probably eat, right? Um, so I appreciate you taking the time, Bobby, and honestly, and I'm sure the listeners do as well.
Thank you so much, Ethalorian. It's always an honor. And again, thank you for being such an amazing community member for such a long time.
Yeah, call me crazy or convicted. I have a lot of belief though, honestly. I saw the vision early on.
I know. I mean, you all did, and this is really the exciting thing. Like, and I mean, I want this to succeed, also for the sake of all of you. I mean, and for the purpose of what it is and what it needs to be.
Sure.
Um, so I'm so excited, man. And I have to say, after all of the specifically stressful last months, it's very surprising to me how excited I am right now, about this actually, because it's suddenly like all clicked together, and yeah, the killer app is here. It's coming. It's going to be fun.
I love it. We'll end it on that. The killer app is here. It's coming. It's going to be fun. I love that.